Hello everyone, this video provides a brief introduction to Japanese advanced pricing agreements. I'm Keith Thomas and I work in the transfer pricing group at EY in Japan. In this video, firstly I will provide an overview of Japan's advanced pricing agreements program. Please note that many people use the word arrangement instead of agreement and it is commonly abbreviated to APA. Secondly, I will explain three main advantages for doing an APA based on our experience of working with many companies investing in Japan. Finally, I will give some more information on the Japanese APA program and its success to date. So what is an APA? An advanced pricing agreement is made between a corporate taxpayer and the tax authority regarding the transfer pricing for a future period of usually 3 to 5 years. By obtaining the tax authority's agreement to the transfer pricing, the taxpayer can eliminate the risk of a transfer pricing audit and tax assessment during the APA period. There are mainly two types of APA, the bilateral APA and unilateral APA. Multilateral APAs are also possible but not so common and we will not be addressing in this video. Now allow me to illustrate the two main types of APA. Acme US sells widgets to Acme Japan, who sells the widgets to customers in Japan. Under a unilateral APA, Acme Japan can agree the transfer pricing with the Japanese tax authorities. However, every transaction has two sides, and it is still possible that the US tax authorities have an issue with the transfer pricing of Acme US when selling to Acme Japan. In order to cover that risk, Acme could enter into a bilateral APA, which is an agreement between the Japanese and US tax authorities. To keep this video short, I won't go into the detail on the pros and cons of unilateral versus bilateral, but just give an example of a potential pro for each. A unilateral APA is made with one tax authority, so it can be simpler and quicker. You might choose the tax authority in the country where you see the most risk, for example. The main advantage of a bilateral APA is greater certainty compared to a unilateral APA because you reach agreement with both tax authorities. Okay, let's talk about the APA process. In general, it's best to commence the analysis for an APA filing about 6 months before the application deadline. The first step is to complete the transfer pricing analysis, including reviewing the facts regarding the transaction and coming up with a proposed transfer pricing approach. Once you have that ready, you hold a pre-filing meeting with the Japanese tax authority to explain your approach. The pre-filing meeting gives the tax authority a chance to express initial comments or concerns and requests that the taxpayer include certain information in the filing. The next stage is to make an APA submission and file with the tax authorities. In addition to a more detailed explanation of the analysis, the taxpayer can address comments and provide any additional information requested at the pre-filing meeting by the tax authorities. The first year covered by the APA is the fiscal year following the submission, so most companies submit before their fiscal year end. If you file before the year end, the tax authorities cannot initiate a transfer pricing audit for the following year. A common question is whether it's possible to cover prior years to the application in a rollback. The answer is that in the case of unilateral APAs, a rollback is not permitted. For bilateral APAs, a rollback is possible for open years. So what happens after submission? Following the submission of the application, the Regional Tax Bureau will review the application. The review involves requests for information and meetings, typically 3 to 10 meetings. The level of detail of the review varies and takes between a few months and a year in general. In a unilateral APA, when the Tax Bureau has completed their review, they make a proposal for the transfer pricing, which often differs from the taxpayer's proposal. If the taxpayer does not agree with the Tax Bureau's proposal, then taxpayers negotiate their case. This is done by providing additional information to explain their position in further meetings. In a bilateral APA, once the Tax Bureau has completed their review, the case moves to the National Tax Agency, which conducts the negotiations with the other countries. So, in a bilateral APA, what does the negotiation process look like? Well, the National Tax Agency team communicates and negotiates with the other tax authority over a period of time. This time period varies, and if you are lucky it could be a few months, though it's more typically between 6 months and 2 years. That doesn't mean 2 years of hard work, because the taxpayer is not directly involved in this negotiation, though you may be contacted by the National Tax Agency with requests for more information as well as updates of their progress. After the two tax authorities have reached agreement, the APA can be implemented by completing some administrative processes. All this might sound like a lot of time and effort, but an APA is really popular in Japan, and the National Tax Agency has a long history of agreeing APAs. The Japanese APA program is well run, and the authorities have a large team who process the cases. To give you an idea in numbers, Japan has agreed well over 1,000 APAs in the last 10 years alone. The APA program is currently more popular than ever in Japan, with applications approximately 150 per year. To put the popularity in a global context, in 2019 there were 148 applications in Japan, which is higher than any other country. Okay, despite the hard work, what are the 3 reasons APAs are so popular in Japan? One reason is to avoid an audit. Audits can be long, but intense and adversarial. The experience of the taxpayer is quite different compared to an APA, under which the experience tends to be more collaborative and reasonable. Related to this, an APA gives you control over resource deployment. A company can plan ahead to assign resources and proceed the APA at a reasonable pace. An audit is unpredictable in terms of timing. Our second reason is certainty regarding the transfer pricing. Certainty refers to removing the chance of a transfer pricing assessment by the tax authorities. An assessment would result in double taxation and penalties. Our number 3 reason is reputation or brand. Transfer pricing assessments have sometimes ended up in the media. Having an APA means no audit and no risk of being in the media. In addition, having APAs in general can help positively with the reputation of a company by being clear examples of how the company is willing to engage openly with the tax authorities. Okay, these 3 reasons focus on the choices of the taxpayer. Are there other reasons that so many APAs have been agreed in Japan? One reason for the Japanese APA program's success is that the Japanese tax authority generally has good relations with its treaty partners and a long history of concluding APAs with major trading partners, including the US, European countries, and increasingly more and more countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Because of the good relations, the vast majority of bilateral APA applications are successfully concluded. Another reason for the popularity of the program is that APAs can sometimes provide more flexibility to the taxpayer in terms of transfer pricing approaches compared to an audit situation. Okay, let's recap this video. We explained what unilateral and bilateral APAs are. We discussed the 3 main reasons for the popularity of APAs in Japan. Finally, we explained some other points that help explain why the Japanese APA program has been so successful to date. If you have any questions or would like to request more information or have comments, please contact us at the email address on your screen. もちろん日本語でも対応できますので、英語でも日本語でもご連絡ください。Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.